Okay, so as we move on to the next slide, I'm going to take on a quick tour around this state-of-the-art factory, and you can see all the latest modern machinery which goes into making these wonderful Italian cigarettes in this state-of-the-art workplace. So just to give you an indication of what's feasible and how this tool can be utilised for things like induction and refamiliarising people with the workplace. So we're going to move on to the next slide now. So again, on the topic of getting people back to the workplace, let's talk a little bit about this famous furlough scheme that the government's introduced. So it's estimated that 25% of the working population are under furlough, which is a massive proportion, isn't it? And this is the first time that the UK government's contemplated such a thing as this. But as you start to think about returning people from furlough and indeed back to the office, there are a number of considerations to think through. One is, what order do you actually return people back to work? I know some companies have a policy of first out, first back, which means that those who are first furloughed will be the first to come back. Perhaps particularly important to those that are suffering from a reduction in their income whilst being on furlough. There has to be some sort of prioritization based on essential workers in inverted commas in terms of those people who are deemed to be more critical to come back compared to the others. There are a number of practicalities to consider. One is getting people back onto normal payroll arrangements if they've had their pay reduced, but also some form of mandatory back to work induction I think will be recommended to allow people to catch up and re-engage, as they haven't, in the case of those furloughed, they haven't been working, or they shouldn't have been working whilst on furlough, although I know that many hundreds of furlough abuse cases have been reported to HMRC. But you've got the furloughed workers coming back, home workers coming back, everyone needs to be re-engaged. And that leads me on to survivor syndrome. What I mean by that is where people's colleagues have been made redundant, for example, or sadly may even have died or perhaps be critically ill. All of this creates a feeling of grief, feels bad for colleagues, and again needs to be recognised and addressed through re-engagement. On the mental health side, a number of employees may well have had domestic problems whilst being at home, suffering from boredom, disengagement, maybe even more serious mental health issues such as depression and feeling of social isolation. Those of you who have mental health first aiders may find that they're particularly busy at this time. And then on the physical side, whilst away from the workplace, many people may be suffering from lack of exercise, maybe overindulgence in food and drink, or of course recovering from infection. So physical well-being also needs to be addressed. Other aspects is financial assistance. So if those that have been furloughed have seen lower income stream, or perhaps combined with their partner or dependents in a similar position, they may have incurred debts, they may need to be looking for loans. So again, the question is whether the organisation can help people in that situation. The final point on this slide is around annual leave. So it's quite problematic to ask people to take annual leave during times where essentially they're furloughed or just at home, they can't go anywhere as a destination on holiday really. Some employers have taken the government steer to allow deferment for up to 2 years as per government statutory leave. Others have opted to offer pay in lieu of holiday. Essentially, people don't really want to use up their holiday at this time, but I know a number of organisations are imposing the taking of holiday or strongly encouraging it. So it's whatever fits your organisation and in line with your operational requirements. Can we move on to the next slide, please?